Hello and welcome to the Career Success Podcast. I'm Jason Connolly. If you're a regular listener, it's great to have you back. But if you're new, welcome to the show. In this series every week, we speak to the biggest names in business all across the globe. We talk about their career stories, the lessons learned, how they overcome challenges, and what success habits they practice. Practical advice to help you in your career. If you have a passion for business, then this is the podcast for you. In this episode, I'm joined by Jolie Downs from Santa Cruz in the US. Jolie is an entrepreneur at heart, a seeker and a lifelong learner with a love for communications. With over 20 years of executive recruitment experience, Jolie is the co-owner of Paradigm Staffing, a premier recruitment firm specialising in public relations, marketing and the communications industry. She is also the host of the inspirational podcast Fresh Blood, Killing It After 40, where she talks with the over 40 population about what it takes to have continued success in life. In addition to a variety of projects she's currently working on, Jolie is also the co-owner of whojobs.com, a communications job board, and TapSnap 1171, a family-run digital photo booth. So, Jolie, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So there's so much that you do at the moment. You clearly look extremely busy, but tell us about you, your career, how it kind of all got started for you.
Well, I actually fell into the recruiting business. I had applied for a research opportunity and didn't even know that this recruiting business existed. But when they were telling me about the characteristics that flourish in this industry, I was like, oh, I think that's me. and I just went off and have been recruiting ever since. It's been something that I've really loved, being able to connect with people and help them find that next right opportunity that fills those holes that are missing in their life right now. It's a passion. And I'm currently working in public relations, communications, and marketing. It was a lifelong passion of mine. I actually was in school trying to thinking about going into PR myself when I stumbled into recruiting. So I married the two, and it's been a blessing in my life.
And I think, like lots of us recruiters, we don't set out after school to get into recruitment. It's something you kind of fall into. And I've always said that the best recruiters are people with life experience. I don't know, did that apply to you, and are you inclined to agree?
Oh, completely. And I feel that, you know what, because with recruiting, there's so much therapy involved. I'm going to be honest. There really is a lot of,
Mm, I
you,
agree.
yes, there, you become a therapist in a lot of ways. And so I actually, throughout these years, I've even taken life coaching certifications, just not so that I could be a life coach, but so that I could be a better recruiter overall, someone who's there to help the person in
Honing
the
your
whole
skills as
package.
well.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. So that's something that I would say life experience really, really brings a lot to the table in this industry.
And we've got so much in common as well because I work in recruitment. So yeah, I know what it takes. And I think to myself, would I have done as well as I've done in the industry if I hadn't have been a police officer, learnt the art of getting to know people and open questions, and then also I was a performer as well. So I've done lots of different things
Oh,
before I
yeah.
joined the industry. But I think from people from the outside looking in, don't necessarily I think people tend to think we get a job, we fill a job, and then we move on. And there's so much to it. And
More.
Jolie, educate us to the people that don't know
So much
about
more.
this.
Yeah, and I think curiosity is a really big thing because that's with the clients that you work with the candidates you work with, it's not a simple just quick and match. I mean, you really try to dig down into the clients that you're working with and figure out what are the personalities, what is the culture, who works here, and everybody has a place that works for them, and every company has a personality that works great for them. And it's just a matter of finding that right person for that right role in that company. And it is a lot more involved than I could even begin to express, really. But it's the same with the candidate. When I'm talking with a candidate, I'm not just talking to them about this one position that I may have called them about. I really want to find out what's going to be the best thing for them. What's going to bring that excitement to their life? What's going to make them thrilled to wake up in the morning? And that might not be my position that I called them about. And it's my job to figure out what that is. And that's what I try to do. And a lot of times, they're not sure. Talking to other companies really helps solidify that in their mind of what is right and what isn't. So it's all very interesting to walk step by
Mm.
step through the process with your candidates and your clients on both sides.
What do you think that and obviously I've got my own thought process on this, but what do you think has kind of been the biggest lessons for you and challenges that you face in your industry, in your respective market, in your location?
I would say the biggest challenges are that my industry, public relations, communications, marketing, are the first to get cut anytime there is a downturn. They're also the first to come back.
It's very
So,
short-sighted as well because I was thinking about this during the pandemic. When you need a good marketing department is when the market's quiet. That should be the last thing you cut is
exactly.
the marketing department because I realized this during the pandemic. So many recruitment agencies went quiet and didn't post for the best part of 10 months. That just sends out to the market that, things are not right. If
Yes.
anything, I was shouting louder than I've ever shouted before. Hello, use us. We're
Yeah.
here during a pandemic. So, it's kind of funny you say that it's the first to be cut because in a lot of ways, my mindset says, no, that's madness. But so many companies see it as a disposable entity where actually there's so much value there. And I'm sure you're very
Oh, yeah.
passionate about that
Oh,
very
it's
topic.
complete madness. Being that I speak to thousands of PR communications marketing people over the course of my career, I can attest that there is incredible power. It is amazing what PR and marketing and communications can do for a company. I talk to these people about their accomplishments every day, and there's so many huge things in our life that are mainstream that were caused by this one person. So it's really, really interesting. And it is the first to be cut. I don't know why. I think you're completely right. It is ludicrous, but it is the first to come back. And it comes back with a flood when it comes back each time. This has been my third downturn. So I can spin the same each time. It gets cut immediately. And then once it comes back, it's like a faucet turns on. And that's where we're at right now, Jason.
And that's really interesting. And when companies do come back, is it because they've suddenly become busy again, or is it they notice that they've made a mistake in letting the person go? What's their mindset when they reapproach you for the person they have just let go just months before?
You know what? I really couldn't tell you. All I can say is that this follows the waves of the United States economy, essentially, because that's where the majority of my business is.
Yeah.
And it has very much been, we felt it first, and then people start talking about it, and we feel it first when it comes back, and it comes back, like I said, with a vengeance. And then
Mm.
about 6 months later, people start talking about the healing of the economy and how things are getting better. And I can't say, I just say that PR is the first to come back, and it's good vibes right now. So it's good news for people.
Mm. In my respective industry, we kind of define a good lawyer by billings, what they've kind of done academically in some senses. Your sort of super candidate? What's the super PR candidate? Is it just judged on where they've worked, or is it what they've done? How do you differentiate the excellent from the good?
Definitely what they've done. Accomplishments is the siren song in the interview process. You want to be talking about the things that you did for your clients, either the problem you solved for them or the goal that you reached for them. And that
Mm.
is the focus. That's what I want to know. And that's
That's
something
interesting.
that everyone should really focus on with any role in any industry. You can think about, what problem are you trying to solve? What did you do to solve that? How did that benefit you, your team, your company? Same with goals. And that's what you should be talking about in the interviews.
What advice would you give to someone who's junior and starting out and wanting to get into PR? Because it's a tricky industry to break into.
Yes. Well, getting an internship, getting that experience. The
Mm.
experience is vital. Get the internship, even if it's unpaid, and get some experience under your belt. There's lots of PR agencies that hire interns. There's lots of companies that'll hire interns. And even if you can't do that, there's lots of small businesses all around you that you can just, in your neighborhood, that you could easily go and talk to and work with their company, do some social media, maybe write a press release. I mean, most of these companies in your neighborhood are doing no PR, marketing, or communications. Someone
Mm.
who wants to get into that space could really just go work, take one company, do some work with them, and build a case study. And that is going to make all the difference in your interview when you're
like a
trying to your
portfolio. And I guess in the industry, well, I'm not guessing it. I guess it's fact. It has changed a hell of a lot. When you started this, I'm guessing Facebook wasn't even something you'd even heard of.
No, 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 it is very interesting, and I remember I think about this all the time, my business partner, when Twitter first started, and it was just, it was brand new and being talked about, and in the PR industry, they're the first to talk about all these things, right? So it's
Yeah.
so there was the talk, and my business partner was like, "No, don't sign up for it. It's just, there's just all these things pop up all day long. It's not worth it." And I gave her so much
180 characters. What can you say at 180 characters? Uh,
I gave her a lot of crap for that. So obviously I did join Twitter,
yeah.
but I should have joined way sooner.
I still have barely joined. I've only got 10 followers. I need to. I've passed. I've just said, you know what, Twitter's just not for me. I'm all about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, but no, I do keep saying I should start it myself. So, you've obviously had a lot of challenges throughout your career. Is there anything that's kind of been, particularly hard, or that we can kind of talk about, at this time, I think it's important that we talk about the hard times when it's not easy for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
hopefully they might be able to find some strength in what you've done, for them.
Yes, well, I mean, I definitely have had some difficult times. The paradigm staffing really was born out of a difficult time.
Mm.
I had started my own recruiting firm, and then I kind of sideswiped into working on the startup. The startup that you think you're going to get excited to
Mhm.
be a part of, if you will,
Yeah.
and it was really exciting. We were doing some work in it, and it started to evolve. In fact, we had this contract for gaming on phones with like sports games and such like this. And this was back in the day when gaming wasn't
Mm.
big on phones. This was a new thing to be talking about, and it was very exciting. And right when we were getting somewhere with the startup, because we were, all starving, trying to make this happen. And right when we were getting right there, there were three partners, and I'll just say there's a little bit of a coup that happened internally with the partners, and they broke apart, and it was all very difficult. And basically I was told by one of the partners that if I went with the other ones, that she was going to sue me. And at the same time, this was right after my mother had passed away. So I was really going through a hard time. And then I found out I was pregnant.
Wow, that's a lot of news in one short space of
It
time. That must
really
have
was.
been
And it's like, "Oh,
challenging.
what do I do?" What do I do? And so, basically I just decided, you know what? I'm not gonna rely on other people. I'm pregnant now. I gotta figure some things out. I'm gonna rely on myself. And I called someone that I had worked with in recruiting in the past, that we had talked about potentially working together in the future. And I called her and said, "You know what? I'm starting my own recruiting firm again, and I've decided I'm going into the PR, marketing, communications realm, because that's where I've always wanted to work. So if you want to join," because she was doing that in the past. It's like, "So if you want to join me, let's do it 50-50. If not, just wanted to let you know." So,
It's happening. It's
it's happening.
happening.
Yeah. So my partner Lindsay said, "Yep, let's do it." And we've been together running Paradigm since then. Since we started 2003, but really we say officially 2004.
And you had, when I looked at the show notes, you had some years of really difficult financial strain, which left you with almost daily panic attacks.
Oh yeah. Yes. No, we had a very difficult time, where both of us were hit with
Right.
some really hard personal hardships. I won't, share what Lindsay went through, but it was
Yeah.
really bad. And myself, I was hit with, my father passed away, and I had some hard family things going on, severe depression, addiction, things of that nature.
Mm.
And my husband's company was acquired, and his salary was cut significantly. Between the two of us that year, we suffered like a 50% cut in complete income. It
Mm.
was very much a struggle, and I was experiencing these panic attacks almost daily. And it was a time where, and I was just, you know what, Jason, I got really negative. Life gets hard,
Mm.
and it
Mm.
starts to suck it out of you. And I remember having dinner with friends, and kind of I felt like I was floating above myself, and I could hear myself. And I
Mm.
was just like, when did I become this negative person? When did I become such a victim? And it was
Mm.
a wake-up call,
How
and
long did it
when
take for you to have that kind of wake-up call? Did it go on for quite a while, or?
it was a tough time. You know what?
Mm.
It was a really tough year and I mean, it was, a progressive eroding of the soul, if you will. And what I realized was that I was surrounded by a lot of things that I didn't want. But would I really know what I did want, you know? And so it
Mm,
made
mm,
me become very clear. I took some time, I took a little pause, and I took some time to figure out what is it I really want? What do I want my life to look like? What do I believe, and what can I create? And so I stopped focusing on what everyone else was doing, because I'd come, this person's doing this and this person's doing that, and why aren't they doing this? And I just stopped that and focused completely on myself.
mm.
What can I do? If I can't change this situation, what can I do to change myself? And that's what I did. And I went fully focused on what I could control in my life and what I wanted to make happen. And I just completely focused every day. I started, when I started my meditation practice again, and that's what I do every morning, would focus on my meditation, thinking about my goals. In fact, I started the 6 phase meditation, which is a practice started by Vishen Lakhiani from Mind Valley, and it's incredibly powerful. It's you think about where you see yourself in 5 years, you think, or what your goals are. You think about, well, what can I do today to reach those goals? You
Mm,
spend time thinking about forgiveness, so you spend a little time each day forgiving what might be bothering you, spend a little time
mm.
feeling connected to the world. And so it's this wonderful meditation
And
practice
what was that called again?
it's called the 6 phase meditation.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it. It sounds really interesting, especially to be thinking about the goals every single day. That's something a lot of people don't stop to do once a week.
Yeah, it is very helpful because then
Mm,
each day, even if it's that one tiny little thing, there is that little step that you're moving forward in your goals. And so it is an accumulative effect that, looking back now, just over this past year, is incredibly powerful. I really can't believe all of the things that I've done
wow.
during this pandemic.
Did you sort of find other different meditations first? Was this the first one you came to, or was it from starting you kind of eventually found this one, which was right for you?
Yeah, no, I eventually found this one. I have a lot of different meditations that I do, and I'll intermix them, but this one is the one that I find very powerful in moving my life forward
Mm.
and getting my day started in the right way.
That sounds beautiful. What a lovely thing to do every morning. It sounds very peaceful indeed. I think really nicely leads us kind of onto success habits and what it is that you do to kind of stay, at the forefront of your game. And, the PR industry is an industry which is forever evolving. It seems to be evolved, doing maybe 5 years of evolution every year now. It's crazy what's going on in the world of
True.
social media. But in terms of, obviously, you got through those challenges, and I've equally had awful challenges, and I think that's what makes you a strong person, is going through and these tough times. And it's never easy. I suffered from psychosis a couple of years into running my
Mm,
business, which was really, 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 really tough.
Feel with that.
Yeah, honestly, it took me nearly a whole year to recover from.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's what happens when you just burn yourself out
Hmm.
for years and years and years. And I think that's something in our industry
Yes,
which happens. It's
it does.
recruitment is one of those. I know there's loads of agencies in our country which tends to bring people in for a few years and then they leave, but there's not many of us career recruiters out there in the UK. Oh, well, good ones anyway, but
It's the same. The business itself burns people out, and then you have those career ones that, those are the names that you know. I guess they
we're
stick around.
veterans, Jolie, veterans. We've been there. We've got the stripes, and we've been through all the tough times that come with it. So, tell us more about kind of what you do to kind of stay at the forefront of your game. And it's you've talked us through one of your kind of I don't know if you would call it maybe a success ritual, if you would define it as such. But tell us more about other things that you do to, it's a busy industry that you work in. You're trying to spin a lot of plates, and I know what it's like in recruitment. But tell
Mhm.
us more about what you kind of do to really, make the most of every single day and achieve all these things you want to achieve.
Well, being clear on the goals is the first. That is first and foremost, to know what it is that you want, be in touch with your why, be in touch with your purpose of what you're doing. That's where you start. And then from there you can make all of those goals and go after them. I believe that you need to write down your goals. If you don't write them down, they're just not going to happen. I think it's incredibly important to take time to write down what it is that you want personally, professionally, and in all aspects of life. Your parenting, your spiritual, your character. You want to hit it all. And then you want to move forward in those goals each week. And so I use the meditation practice. I think it's a great practice, but you don't need to use that. It's even just, everyone has different methods. For example, like Ben Franklin, he would pick one thing each week, right? So maybe it would be he wanted to work on his professional, this week, and then the next week maybe he worked on his parenting. Or I don't know if he had kids, but he'd pick a different category, and then he would move forward whatever he needed to do that week. For me personally, I just want to take those little steps. So I have my goals and I have them ranked, and so I have certain goals that I know I'm really working towards this year. They're kind of my main goals this year. And I'll try to make at least one little step that I can each day. And a lot of it can look, it's kind of like stacking on top of your own expertise. So it's like thinking about, well, how can I expand my own skill set that makes sense, that can add not only to what I'm doing, but it's something that I would enjoy and can also add to, my professional profile. And so a lot of different steps that we've done. When we had our first downturn, or not our first down, our second downturn, we started Who Jobs, which was the job board for PR, marketing, and communications specific to that, because we found that there was nothing specific to that. And so we decided to do that and expanded there. This downturn, decided to start a podcast. It's a book that I wanted to write, which really addresses a lot of the struggles that we feel, especially over the age of 40. I found, as a recruiter, I mentioned the therapy, as a recruiter throughout the years, it would always be over people over the age of 40 who would have that little bit more of a struggle, that little bit more of a panicky feeling. They're just not sure where that next role is going to come from, or if they need to make a switch, because naturally in the corporate environment, as you move up through the ranks, there are less opportunity, and so you have bigger competition for these positions, and people do eventually get a little bit offset. Sometimes they get offset from the corporate ladder. And so I found that these conversations were over 40. And I also found that a lot of my clients, even VP, SVP roles, they had a cap on the years of experience. Like they just didn't want to see people with more than 20 or 25 years experience. So as I found myself rolling up the ladder of 20 years experience, and I'm like, wow, my clients wouldn't hire me. Like I have too much experience. And this is crazy to me because I am rocking it right now. Like this is when you want me. And so I started becoming really interested in the stories of people over the age of 40 who are just killing it in life. And what is it that they're doing? Got them there? How did they get through their tough times? And what I found was that just sharing these stories, like I would talk to someone and be like, wow, I wish they could have talked to this person. So I wanted to write a book to bring attention to this and kind of share those stories. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, I'm going to write my book. And then I realized, wow, it's a lot of interviews. I'm going to have to do a lot of interviews. So I thought, you know what, let's make that into a podcast, share those stories in a podcast format, and then I'll turn it into a book eventually. And it has been really wonderful, these stories coming through. And I started this, Jason, to help other people. I wanted other people to be inspired by these stories. And hopefully they are, but I have to say, while I started this to help other people, it is helping me in such an incredible way. I just can't get over the transformation in my own self from listening to these people's stories, really pulling out those takeaways and holding them in my own heart and moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about the podcast. It actually has, my podcast has had a similar effect on my life because when I started my podcast, I just felt really lonely. I think one because of lockdown, and two because I'd worked my way up this business ladder, and a lot of my original friends that I met when I first, before I started my business, I found they weren't not that they weren't friends, but I kind of felt that I stopped relating to a lot of people, and this podcast has really connected me to some truly amazing new friends. So it's funny the impact it's had. It's even made me look differently on so many different things. So I think it sounds like we're going on a podcast journey together.
Yeah,
you,
right?
you
I
must
know.
tell us, what is your podcast called? Let's hear that, because and it's specifically, is it specifically over people over 40 who listen to it?
Well, I'm interviewing people over 40. But honestly, I think it's an incredibly helpful podcast for anyone who wants to know how to live their most fulfilled life and to have continued
Mm,
success throughout life. We're talking a lot about the same things, Jason. How you get over those obstacles and get through those challenges. How you
mm,
reach your success. What is your definition of success, and how has it changed through the years, and what are the things that you've learned from
mm.
the things you've done right and the things you've done wrong, and all that good
So it could
juice.
be a great listen for a 20-year-old what wants to think, and I soak in some pearls of wisdom from
Oh,
someone
yeah. I
20 years older who's successful and get ahead. And that's just, I guess, an alternative way of looking at it.
Yes,
So it's something for everyone that wants to progress in life,
yes,
it sounds
but
like.
it's great for the over 40, especially because you know what? This is what I find, so much of the mindset can get eroded a little bit. Just like I was speaking with someone the other day, and she was telling me that her husband, even though he's not really happy with what he's doing, he's 45 and he's already well established. It's like, no, no. That's absolutely no. If
Mm,
he's not happy, if he knows what's going to make him happy, then he should be going after that, regardless if he's 45 or 55 or 65. You go after what's going to make you happy and what's going to excite you. And the stories that I talk to with people on these podcasts, guess they're people who are switch careers at 50, or found themselves at 50, met themselves for the first time at 43, and these are all stories that we can't so many people can relate to, because
mm,
how many people in middle age really wake up and have that feeling of like, where am I? Like,
mm,
why am I here? How many people just follow what's been put in front of us? It's very common. It's human. We have these goals, or we're
mm.
given these goals at a young age, and we follow them, and we put next step, and then we go to the next step, and then we go to the next step, and we're just doing it without really thinking about.
Consciously, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what you're doing every single day with the
yeah,
meditation. That
yeah,
kind of awake state that you're in. It
yeah.
sounds like a beautiful series of stories, and I think I interrupted you just as you was going to tell us what it's called. Jolie, tell us what this podcast is called. I want to hear it.
It's called Fresh Blood, Killing It After 40. And it's called Fresh Blood because I wanted to prove that new blood does not necessarily mean young blood. Because
Mm.
that's what, companies say. I want some new blood. Well, I'm here to tell you that all ages of blood can be immensely creative and productive. And we really want everyone's view.
Great. Well, you heard it there. Fresh Blood, killing it after 40, if you want to check that out. Jolie, just before we part company with one another, and it's been an absolutely lovely conversation, what advice would you give to someone who, wants to, generally sell themselves? They want to get out there, they want to find a new role. They said, this is where I want to be. Perhaps, let's say demographic wise, someone in their early 20s who thinks, I want to progress. What advice would you give to themselves, to how to sell themselves, and also how to, progress and get that role that they want?
Well, they should sit down and make a list. And I would make a list of everything that they can possibly think of. Going back to those accomplishments that I was talking about. It's really, really imperative. Think about every single little goal that you have tried to solve for anyone that you work for professionally, as well as anything personally that could be maybe made into a little unique case study, if you will. But think about any goal you're trying to solve, any problem, or any goal you tried to reach and any problem you tried to solve. What did you do to reach that goal? You want to be very specific about what you did to reach that goal or solve that problem. Too many people at the young age will go in and they'll start talking about we did this or we did that. They want to know what you did. So be very specific. And then
Mm.
how did whatever you did, how did that actually benefit whoever it was that you were doing it for, whether that be a company or a team, or maybe even if it's your family, if you don't have any professional experience, perhaps it was in your student organization, you had these situations, and you want to come up with these little case studies, if you will, these little accomplishments that you have in your back pocket that you can bring up and talk about at any time. So when you're asking someone about, if you're interviewing, you really want to get them talking about what it is that they're looking for. And you want to get them talking about what they want this person to accomplish, what they see, what types of personality works best, anything that you can get them talking about what it is that they want, then you can make those correlations with your own case studies and not only the case studies, but everything that's really great about you too. You want to make a list of everything that makes you you and what makes you unique, what you bring to the table, what you bring forth into the world. You want that
Mm.
list, not only so that you know how to talk about it, but so that it makes you feel really good about yourself. You want to feel that confidence and that knowing that you have something to bring to the table. And that way, when you are faced with people who have these opportunities and they're talking to you, you're going to be able to speak about it articulately. You're going to be able to bring forth your whole best self into that conversation, and they will see that and give you that opportunity.
I think that's absolutely great advice, and I'm feeling empowered just listening to it. So there you go. You heard it first. Jolie, if people want to find out more about you, where can they go to?
They can go to paradigmstaffing.com. They can go to joliedowns.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Jolie Downs. Feel free to connect with me. I love connecting with people.
Well, thank you so much, Jolie, for joining me on this episode. It's been a lovely conversation.
I loved it, Jason. Thank you so much for having me.
That was Jolie Downs from Santa Cruz in the US. I'm Jason Connolly. This is the Career Success Podcast. Until next time, goodbye.